Alright guys, so in this video we're going to talk about different elements that are there using which we can arrange our page in a much better and give it a proper structure. So we're going to talk about different block spacing elements. Now the first thing that you can see is I have this index.html, then I have this style sheet. Okay, and I've just written this normal code that I'll explain in just a moment. On the right side of the screen you can see that I have this heading 1, then I have this paragraph. So I have this three different blocks. Okay, these three different blocks, and I've created them using this div tag. This div tag stands for division or a section tag in HTML5, which is used as a container which contains all the other elements that we want inside that division. And we can easily style this div tag by adding a class or an ID to it and then calling that class or an ID in CSS and applying the styles that we want to a particular div. Suppose now here I have created this three divs, so I've given them a class. I can also give them an ID, that's no problem. Okay, these are advanced selectors, right? We studied them in the previous videos. So I've given it block 1, block 2, block 3. Now to call this class advanced selectors, we use this dot operator and then we write the name of the class. So we've given this block 1, block 2, block 3. What I've done is I've just added this background color. So this background color red, blue and green. So this is what it looks like now. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to style this, right? Let's go here, and now you can see that we'll create a div tag here as in selectors. You want to style this, you want to apply a few styles to this. So what I'll do is I'll add a width to it. Let's add a width of 500 pixels. I'll save it. Let's open it up in a browser, refresh it. So yeah, this is the width that has been added. Before it covered the entire screen. As it is a block element, it takes up the whole screen. It will not you cannot see it. Like you will see that even now there's space that one can fit here, but it will not fit because it is a block element, so it takes the complete width of your page. Okay, depending on what size of screen size you're using, it does not matter. Irrespective of that, it will take the entire width of your screen. It will not go next to each other like we saw in links. A link appear next to each other. So these are block elements, so they will take up the complete width even if there's space. Okay, now the next thing that we'll do is let's add a height to it. Let's add a height of 200 pixels. Let's see what happens. We'll save it. Now as soon as, let me just reduce it a bit more, call it 150 px and save it. Now you can see that as soon as I refresh it, you can see that the text is leaving this first block and going inside the second block, and it's clearly not visible. Same is happening for the other blocks, and also you can see it clearly here that the three lines are getting out of this block. So what do we do? So what we can do is, first step that we can do is we should never add height to this div elements. If we remove height, let's see what happens, and I'll save it. As soon as I remove it, you can see that it takes up all the space it needs. It's not taking up less, it's not taking up more. The div tag takes the exact amount of space that is required. It will not take any more and it will not take any less. Okay, exact spaces that it needs, it takes. But what if you added a height? Let's see. You added a height here. Now the next thing that you don't want this to happen. So we'll use a property called as the overflow property. Okay, overflow, and the first value, let's call it hidden. I'll save it. So as soon as I type hidden here, you can see that now the text that was leaving is not visible at all. Let me just show you again. Just cut this line out. I'll save it. You can see that we have this text that is leaving, but as soon as we add overflow hidden property here, you can see that text is not visible at all. Okay, now the second one we can use is scroll. Save it. Now you can see that we have the scroll bar appeared up here. We can scroll throughout this heading. Okay, same for the second one and same for again the third one, right? Let's see what different overflow properties we have. Okay, so as soon as I type overflow, you can see that I have this hidden, scroll, and the first property, that is always default property for overflow, is visible. As soon as I save it, you can see that this is leaving. So if I add visible or not, it will not affect because this is the default property that is always present for overflow. Okay, so you can either do this one thing, that is add overflow property, or what we can do is we'll just remove this height, because the div tag automatically takes all of the space that it requires. Okay, if you add one more, suppose let's add one more paragraph here, and we'll again add one more lorem ipsum. You can see that again it takes the exact amount of space that is required. It will not take much, it will not take more, it will not take less. Okay, now let's talk about the next thing. The next thing we're going to talk about is margin and padding. We've added these elements to our HTML site in previous videos, but we have not studied what they are, what they actually do. So first let's go to style sheet. Okay, now you can see that this h1 tag, after this h1 tag there's a lot of space. Okay, between this paragraph and this h1 tag there's a lot of space. Then again there's a blank space on the left side of the screen, then again on the top, again there's a one on the right side but you cannot see, then again there's a space in the bottom side. So what we'll do is we'll remove all of these default styles. You can do that in many ways, but the first thing we'll do is we'll remove all of this of heading. So in this style sheet, what we'll do is we'll call this h1 tag, and inside this h1 tag what we'll do is we'll say margin 0 and padding 0. I'll save it. Now as soon as I refresh it, you will see that this block will change. It will shift a little bit. Now it shifted a bit upwards. The space from the upper side was decreased, and then few other elements were also changed. A few other styles were also changed. Sorry, not elements. As we decreased margin and padding, let me just show you what margin and padding are. Let's just inspect this. Okay. Now as soon as I click on this, let's click on this block. Now I'll go in the bottom. You can see that it has no margin, it has no padding. Okay, padding is also not mentioned and the margin is also not mentioned. Let's just remove this property for now. I'll save it again. I'll refresh it here. Now you can, when I click on this div block 1, now you can see that this heading inside this div has a margin of 21 point something. It does not have a padding, but it has a margin. And as soon as I add this property again, I'll save it, I'll refresh it again. Now you can see that this h1 has no margin and no padding. We can also do the same thing for div tags also. Let's check if we can do that. Let's again see margin 0. Let's say padding 0. Okay, and we'll save it. There's no much change, I guess. Yeah, because the div tag takes the exact amount of space required. Now let's again do the same for paragraph tag. So what we'll do is we'll just write comma and we'll save it. Now as soon as I remove it, I remove the margin and padding, you can see now that the block sticks up to each other. There's no space like there was earlier. After every block we had space, but now there's no space after every block. Okay, we can also check now if you want to check what is taking up this right left side of the screen, what is taking up this space in the top of the screen. So you can just click on this body tag and you will see that we have a margin of 8 pixels, I guess 8 pixels on each side. Yes, we have a margin of 8 pixels on each side. So if you want to remove that, what we can do is we just add comma body here and we'll save it. Now you can see that the element sticks up. Now it's not taking up any extra space. As soon as I click on body, now you can see margin is also 0 and padding is also 0. Okay, so this is what we saw. Now the next thing that we'll do is we'll just remove all of this. We'll remove this, we'll save it. Now the next thing that we'll do is inside this block 1, this text and this paragraph is is touching the block too much. What I want a little bit of space. I want this to move inside a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll add padding inside here. I'll add a padding of, let's say, 5 pixels. Let's see what happens. Now you can see that the text moved in a little bit. So let's add 15 pixels. Yeah, now like my text has moved a lot inside and it looks much better than before. You can see, you can just compare heading 1 and heading 2 and heading 3. Heading 1 looks much better after adding padding of 15 pixels. So what this line basically means is we have added padding of 15 pixels all around. Again, let's go to Google Chrome, refresh it, we'll inspect this element, and you can see that now it has a margin of 16 pixels actually. Okay, let's see if it has any padding. Let's see this div. You can see that it has padding of 15 pixels. This is the padding. You can see it is in what color? It is in green color. You can see on the screen it is appearing. This is the 15 pixels padding. If you want, you can change it. You can add 110. Sorry, I'll add 10 pixels padding. So it will decrease from the top. Okay, so we can see 15% padding is there. Sorry, 15 pixels. Now let's add the same property to both of them, this block and also this block. I'll save it again. Okay, now it looks much better, right? Now again, what I want is I want a space between two blocks. I don't want them sticking together. So what I can do is I'll add a property called as margin, and I'll give it a value of, let's say, 10 pixels. I'll save it. Now you can see that there's a bit of space, not only from the bottom part but also from the right to the top, on the left, the top and the right side of the screen. I'll just show you once again. I'll just add it to both the blocks. Okay, I'll save it. I'll refresh it. Now you can see that yes, it looks much better than before. Let's inspect. Now as soon as I click on this block, you can see that now it has a margin of 10 pixels and padding of 15 pixels. You can see here also padding is 15 and the margin is 10, not just from one side but from all the sides. And on the left side of the screen, you can see that here it has a margin of 15 pixels, but then also it has some blank space. That is because we removed the style of the body. Now again, body also has a margin of 8 pixels, so that is what's taking the space, right? Okay, so this for the second div is also it is the same, 10 pixels margin and 15 pixels padding, and same for the third one. Now the next thing that we'll do is we'll see how to add this margin and padding in a shorthand and a better way. So this line or this statement means that 15 pixels of padding or 10 pixels of margin is added to all sides. But what if we want to add it to a particular side? So what we'll do is we'll just remove this from each block. We'll save it. This is how it looks. Now what I want is I want this heading one to shift a little bit inside from this left side. So what I'll do is I'll add this padding left, that 10 pixels of padding left. Let's save it. Now you can see that it has shifted 10 pixels inside to the right side from the left side. But next thing that I want is I want it to shift a little bit up from the bottom. I don't want it so stick to the bottom one. So what I'll do is again I'll use padding bottom, and here again I'll add 10 pixels. Now it has a padding from the bottom also. Let's check it in a browser. Yes, so now it has from the left side from the bottom, and now again I want it from the right side and the top side. So again what I'll do is I'll add padding top to 10 pixels and padding right to 10 pixels, and I'll save it. Now each side has 10 pixels margin, but what we had to do was add it to every left, bottom, top and right, every direction we had to add it, right? So what's a better way than doing this? Before it was like this, but now we can use this shorthand padding 10 pixels. It will add 10 pixels of even padding to each side. But now what if I want different padding for certain sides? For the up part, say suppose I want 20 pixels margin, for this side I want 20, but this side I want 10, and again on the right side also I want 10. How can we do that? We can either add again bottom, right and all that, or what we can do is we'll just add this shorthands. Now for the top and the bottom I want 20 pixels padding. So what I'll do is I'll write 20 pixels here and I'll hit space, and for the left and the right I want 10 pixels padding. I'll save it. Let's check it in a browser. Refresh. Inspect it. We'll inspect this block. Now you can see that on the top and the bottom we have 20 20, and on the left on the right we have 10 10. That's what we added, right? 20 pixels and 10 pixels. So this, if you write like this, it means that add a padding of 20 pixels to the top and the bottom part, and add the padding of 10 pixels to the right and the left part. Okay. We also have one thing next we can do is, what if I want 20 pixels padding for the top? Okay, and then let's say 30 pixels padding for the top, and then I want for left and right I want it a bit increased, so let's say 15 pixels, and for the bottom it should be 10 pixels. So how can I do that in single line? So what I'll do is, again, for the top I want 30 pixels padding, so I'll write 30 pixels, I'll hit space. For the left and the right I want 15 pixels of padding, and for the bottom one it should be 10 pixels, and I'll save it. Okay, now let's again check it in the browser if it has been added. Let's click on this div. Now you can see that the top has a padding of 30, the right and the left have padding of 50, and the bottom one has a padding of 10. So what this line means is, add padding of 13 pixels to the top one, 15 pixels to the left and the right one, and 10 pixels to the bottom one. Okay. Now what if I want 4 different values for all different sites? So I can also do that. We can also have similar values, doesn't matter. So what I'll do is, I'll write 40 pixels for the top, 30 pixels, 30 pixels for the, it goes in a clockwise manner. Okay, so 40, 30, 20 pixels and 10 pixels. So what this means is, first add it to top, as clock goes in a clockwise direction, right? So it will add in a clockwise direction. So first it will add to the top, then it will add 30 to the right one, then 20 to the bottom one, and 10 to the left one. Let's check. So now you can see 40 to the top, 30 to the right, 20 to the bottom, and 10 to the left side. Okay, so these were the shorthands for using padding. We can also use the same for margin. Okay, we'll just add it again here, and we'll change it to margin. Let's save it. Okay, let's again refresh it. As soon as I click on this div tag, now you can see it has is the same margin of 40, 30, 20, and 10. Same properties that we discussed for padding were there for margin. We can add it separately to each side, margin left, right, bottom, top. We can add it directly at once, equal size margin 40 px for each side, or we can also add it 2 at a time, 3 at a time. For 2 at a time we have top and bottom, left and right, and for 3 at a time we have top, left and right, and bottom, and then the 4 at a time we have top, right, bottom, and left. Okay, so that was it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next video.